Hi, my name's Ebony. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is where I like to talk about all the spooky books I like to read. And today I am jumping straight in to give you a bit of a reading wrap up for April and talk about everything that I got through in the last month. Now, I have been struggling along a little bit this year with my reading, and April was the first month that I felt like I got my groove back a little bit and got out of that reading slump that I'd pretty much been in since Christmas. And it's not mind-blowing. I'm not a reader who can get through like 20 books a month. Just simply cannot. I wish I could. I need to try. But for me, this was a really solid month. And I've been finding actually this year that I've been having just better luck in general. On average, my rating is higher than it already was last year. I think, you just get better at picking the books and curating your own bookshelves, eh? That's what I've noticed. Anyway, so I'm going to go in the order that I read these. I also have a little mini book haul at the end of this video with some things that I've collected over the last month as well that I haven't told you about that I thought would be fun to just tack onto here. But starting with the reading, the first book I read in April was The Graceful Patient by Caitlin Starling. Beautiful cover. Look at this. This is a bit of a medical horror. I had very high expectations, mainly because of this beautiful artwork. This is following Margaret, who has an autoimmune disease that is just debilitating. She can't work, she can't have a social life, she's got nothing at the moment. She feels miserable and she finally sees the opportunity to maybe get better. She's tried everything, doctors don't listen, and she gets asked to be part of this trial, this drug trial. And she goes, well, what have I got to fucking lose? So might as well. But what happens after this and what we follow is her kind of descent into whatever you think it might be. She's kind of questioning her own reality. Like, is she imagining things? Is it the trial? Is it the drugs? Is it what they're putting in her body? Or is she actually like seeing things happen in this hospital that aren't normal? That's about the crux of this story. I don't feel as though this had maybe what I was looking for. I was going to say it didn't have depth. I feel like it did. Like there was stuff in there about how people are treated in the medical system, specifically women, I feel like, and especially those with autoimmune diseases. Like I feel like there's a lot of gaslighting within medical practices for people going through this sort of the stuff for as long as I can remember, and they're not being treated accurately and they're not being listened to. And I feel like it had a message about that. The actual horror side of it, like I did enjoy. I was really invested in Margaret's journey in this hospital. You really do feel the isolation. She's locked in this ward in this hospital that is cut off from everybody else, all the other patients, all the regular patients, because it is a trial and they want to keep her separate. And it does add to the sense of dread because she is kept away from everyone else, including staff. As the trial progresses and she's further in the depths of it, there are moments where it's like her phone has gone missing and her stuff from her outside world, so she's got no connection to anyone. She can't even call her mother. Like there's all these things that add, but then it'll come back. Like it'll just be back where she left it. Things like that adds to that am I going crazy feeling. However, I only read this a month ago and I won't lie, I kind of can't even remember a lot of what happened towards the end. It got a little bit ludicrous. Like, I mean, I love a supernatural weird horror, and I love suspending my disbelief, and that definitely had this, but I think I would have enjoyed it more. Again, no spoilers, but I would have enjoyed this more if it hadn't gone this weird supernatural entity route. It would have been a scarier, horror-inducing novel if it had just focused in on the heart of this story, which was medical trauma. I don't know, that's not a very fun subject maybe to read about, but I feel like there's so much already that you can play on, and I think it was done really well. Like I really enjoyed what the author was doing for so long, and the sense of being cut off from the outside world and questioning your own reality and whether it's like the trial or not. Like that stuff was really good, and it could have gone a bit thriller maybe, and I might have enjoyed it more than what ended up happening. And I'm not going to tell you what happened, but I still overall really enjoyed it. It's really not that long, 300-ish pages. Like I gave it 3.5 stars. I think it was still a very easy to digest novel. I think the writing was really nice. I enjoyed her writing style. I thought characters was good. and there was so much in it that I did enjoy. It was just the climax of the story just didn't quite work for me. So 3.5 stars for that one. Next up, I read The House in the Pines by Anna Reyes. What I didn't realize when I purchased this book was how low the average rating is. Not that I let that drive me at all. Like, it actually made me want to finish it instead. It actually didn't diminish my enjoyment of this book. I can see why maybe people don't vibe with this at all, but actually I think it kind of worked. I think it was a straight down the middle average read for me. I gave it 3 stars in the end, but I devoured it in pretty much one day. I thought it was enjoyable, and it was paced really well. There was, I don't know, there was enough intrigue and mystery that you kind of just have to find out. And for that, I was like, I can't fault it. Her writing's not bad. Like, it's all good. Our main character, Maya, she has this memory of this house in the pines. She remembers it as this cozy place where it smelled like yummy food and there was a fire crackling. But the one summer that she discovered this house and was brought to this house was the same summer her best friend died in a very unexplainable way. And now 10 years or 6 years later, whatever it is, a video emerges on the internet and she can't stop watching it because it's a girl dying in the exact same way her best friend did all those years ago with the same man that was present in both times. But she can't prove it. Like, he didn't do anything. Like, anyway, I liked that premise. You know, that's all you need to know basically going in. I actually didn't mind the direction this took. I think if you look it up and you want spoilers, you'll see straight away what people don't like about it. It didn't bother me, actually. I think I just gave it 3 stars because it didn't wow me. It didn't do much for me, but I still had a good time while I read it. The pacing was really great. I thought it was easy to read. If you wanted to get back out of a reading slump, I actually feel like this is a good one. If you don't mind a little bit of, I don't even know how to talk about this without spoiling it, to be honest. But I just thought it was okay. It was okay. But it's not as bad as everyone prattles on about, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like people are being a bit harsh on this book. I would say this is more like psychological thriller. It's not a horror. And I like I have said, I actually enjoyed the direction it took. I thought it did something a little bit unique. And I think she tried something, and I get why it might not have worked for people, but I didn't mind it, and I think it actually worked for me. So yeah, 3 stars. Next up was one picked for me by my husband. We do this thing sometimes where if I can't decide, because I'm a big mood reader, if I can't decide what to read, he'll like go bookcase number 2, shelf 4, book 17. And so I go and I pick it out, and he did that for me one day, and this is what he picked off my shelf, was The It Girl by Ruth Ware. I have read The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, and I gave that 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. And you know what? This was almost giving 5 stars. You know that fluttery feeling you get early on? Like, in the first 100 pages, I was like, oh my God, am I getting another 5 star from Miss Ruth Ware? It didn't quite do that, but I will say that is reader error, not author error, because I was absolutely inhaling this story, couldn't stop, was loving it, getting those great feelings. And then I made the mistake of putting it down for like 3 or 4 days, and I just lost my groove. And so then every time I picked it up, I was finding it really hard to get back into the flow of the story. Once I did though, it was good and it picked up. Anyway, this is about Hannah, who found her roommate's body on their living room floor 10 years prior. And it was her testimony that put the guy away. And now she's wondering, in present day, if she put an innocent man behind bars. Okay? That's all. I'm not going to tell you anymore because I think that's about all you need to know. Like, it's got a good crime mystery in it. It's not police procedural because the police aren't involved anymore. Like, and you're not getting like the courtroom stuff or anything, but you're still getting that crime mystery, and it's kind of her on the adventure of trying to find out what actually happened. But I loved the alternating timeline. So we've got the 10 years ago leading up to the murder of April. And then we've got the now when stuff's going on that is prompting her to look back into what she saw and her testimony and her memories of that time, that awful time that she doesn't think about. I think because it was dual timeline, it kept you reading, because you know that classic thing of like, oh my God, I want to go back to that one, but then you're going to go to the next one and then you blah, blah, blah. So I really loved it. I loved both. And so often you do go, well, I prefer the past or I prefer the present, but this wasn't the case in this. I enjoyed both timelines because you could feel that they were all linking up in some way, and it was a really satisfying way to read. I loved the way this Oxford campus was like was described to us and visualized, it really came to life on the pages for me, and it added an extra layer for this kind of dark academia. It kind of gave that a little bit, you know, having the past set on an Oxford campus with these young adults who are in a cool, like this group of friends that kind of just get thrust together, and it worked really well. I enjoyed all of them as individuals and as a group of friends. It all kind of made sense. You know, you've got like the jock, the handsome guy, you've got the nerdy, geeky, wannabe doctor, you've got our main character who's kind of giving like girl next door, average Joe, you know, she's one of us, so you relate to her a bit more as the reader. Then you've got April, the girl who ends up being murdered, who is like, comes from a rich family, her daddy pays for everything, that kind of vibe. Loved the pacing. I thought it was really deftly executed, like it all just like, it wasn't slow. It was a perfectly medium paced book. It didn't drag for me at any point, and it wasn't too fast that you missed details that you needed. I also think this had something to say about class. It wasn't a shocking ending. I can see how it could have been a twist, but it also didn't shock me. Like, I didn't see it coming, but I wasn't dumbfounded and shocked by it. Does that make sense? Like, you know, when you're like, okay, that was a twist, but it didn't shock me. I don't know how to explain it any more than that. That's what this was for me. I go, that makes sense. It would be that person, you know? Yeah. And I enjoyed how it ended. I enjoyed the build up to it in the past and the present. I got so invested, especially in the past timeline, in the university and the campus, and the way there was some moments with the character, the porter, that were written that he gave me I was disgusted by him. I was very connected to Hannah as a character as well. Just your normal girl trying to figure out her life, didn't come from anything special, and she's trying to be the different one. Like, I don't know, I thought it worked, and I think that's why you like this sort of book, is because she's not too niche and unique. So you can put yourself in her shoes pretty easily. Anyway. But there's also some complicated stuff going on in this as well with relationships, past and present. And the way that secrets are revealed and fed to you is done in such a way that keeps you turning those pages. And I don't know, I gave this 4.25, and I would have loved it to be a 5-star, but I do think that was my own fault. If I had just read this in 2 days and just stuck to it, powered through, maybe it would have been a 5-star. But I think for the reason that I put it down, maybe the ending just didn't land quite as strongly as I was hoping. Not in any way as strongly as The Turn of the Key did, for example, but I really enjoyed it. The next one is probably my highest rated book for the month of April, and it was because I was wanting a zombie novel, right? But I wasn't wanting like a gore fest. I don't know. And one that I found not long back is One Yellow Eye by Lee Radford. And so I bought this and I ate this up. Gave this 4.5 stars. I thought Lee Radford's writing is very eloquent and engaging. Again, you become very invested in this story. I think this is just as much a zombie novel as it is about the lengths someone will go to for the love of their life. If I had to sum it up in one sentence, that's what I would say, is this is just as much a zombie novel as it is a love story. That's all I would say. This is following Kester, and she lives in London. London recently went through a zombie pandemic, and the country's finally getting a bit of respite, and they're on their way to finding a cure months later. There's no more zombies, except her husband Tim was the last person to be bitten, and unbeknownst to everybody else, she's got him locked up in their spare bedroom and he's not quite dead yet. It's, nail-biting. The feelings I felt while I read this were a mix of horror and dread, anxiety, because you're like, oh my God, she's going to get caught any moment. Like when she's at work and he's locked up, it's like, is he going to escape? Is someone going to hear him? Because she lives in an apartment building as well, not like a house. So it's like the walls and people underneath can hear. Oh my God, so stressful. But I also just felt this immense sadness reading this book because I don't know, like what would you do? And she gets to work with the government agency that is looking to create a cure for this. But they think they've got all the time in the world, but she wants to get it sorted quickly because she's had her husband locked up for 6 months or whatever. And she's getting stressed because there's only so many blood transfusions and drugs she can give a zombie, you know? Oh man, it's stressful. So I loved that this was such a unique way of doing a zombie novel and a zombie apocalypse feeling, because I also enjoyed that London was the only place that it happened. So the rest of the world is kind of like abandoned the city, you know? And so as someone who loves London and goes there very often, it's weird to think of London as a ghost town and picking up the pieces after this horrible event, this like life-changing event, but hasn't happened to the rest of the world. So they're trying to prevent it from then spreading elsewhere. So there's a lot of pressure in this agency to come up with a cure, you know, but she's got her own reasons. And that is all I'm going to tell you. This almost made me cry at the end. I loved the way it ended. There was some beautiful dialogue and beautiful, it's probably not the right word, though it's heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. Would I be brave enough to shoot my partner in the head to prevent them from being a zombie? Would I give them over to the government to kill in whatever way they want? I think she's, like, the Kester as a character kind of speaks to that human condition of sacrificing. And if you vowed to love someone and if you're truly, truly in love with them, then you really will do anything to bring them back. But what you're bringing back might not be the thing, might not be the person you loved all those years. And you're actually not doing it for them to a point. Like, it comes to a point where it's like, are you just being selfish and you're doing it for yourself at this stage? And there were so many of these questions that came up, and I found it a really thought-provoking novel for that reason, all with the backdrop of a zombie pandemic. And I thought the science of it was not so heavy-handed that a layperson such as myself couldn't understand it or get the gist anyway. Like, I didn't have to go to Google and search anything up. It was all very well done without also feeling like I was being talked down to and that I was stupid. So really nice. She found that balance really well. So all props to her. 4.5 stars. I don't know why I didn't give it 5 stars. I probably could. Maybe I'll change my mind later in the year and I'll let you know. But right now, this is sitting at a very solid 4.5 stars, if that feels like something you would like. And when I say love about this book, it's still horror, and it is not love like romance. I think you know. If you're a horror or thriller reader, you know what I'm saying. Like, this is not about romance. No way. This is deep, true love, undying love. And yeah, the lengths someone might go to. I could rave about it forever. But yes, very enjoyable. Please pick it up if you're a horror lover or you're in for a zombie novel that is a little bit different. Go for it. Next up, I read Dark Matter by Michelle Paver. This one I read for my family's book club. We finally started a book club as a family. This was the first pick. I started it. I picked horror and I wanted something spooky. So this is what we ended up voting on for our first book club meeting as a family. And I have seen this on so many lists of some of the scariest books ever written. And so that's why I thought, okay, my family don't read as much horror as I do. This could be a cool one. And I'm a bit bummed because I didn't love it. And I think maybe because I went in with expectations of it being quite a highly rated novel, that it kind of took away some of my enjoyment, but it was enjoyable. I did enjoy it. I gave this 3 stars. It was similar to House in the Pines, where I was like, you could easily just inhale this. Like, read it in one sitting. It's so quick. Like, look at this. It's like huge font size. And it's all in journal format, the whole novel. So it's like, I don't know, it's broken up very easily to digest. This is set in 1937 London to begin with, and we're following Jack, who he's lonely and poor, he's got nothing to his name and he wants to change his life. And so he gets the chance to go on an Arctic expedition with some of these blokes. And so off they go, they're jet setting. But slowly, one by one, each member of this party has to leave for whatever reason and he's left alone. The summer is very brief, the sun doesn't last very long. Suddenly he's in total darkness and there's something else out there with him. Brief, but that's what it's about. I did enjoy the first chapter. The setup was good. I thought we got a good sense of each of the characters, each of these men, all the posh boys, you know, the rich kids going on this expedition, and Jack being quite different from the others. Also, he made us believe anyway, even though I think he fit quite well in. There was good symbolism between the first first chapter, something that happens in the first chapter, a body being pulled out of the Thames, not a spoiler, a body being pulled out of the Thames and stuff that happens later. There was really interesting, symbolism and significance in that. And so I thought that was tied pretty well together in the end. What I didn't vibe with was just her writing style. I think because she chose to set it in 1937, but wrote it not like 15 years ago, there was something quite stilted in her language. It wasn't very natural for the time. It didn't feel like it fit these characters. And it felt so simple. And I think when I was researching a bit before book club, I was like, oh, so she was a children's author before she wrote this, I'm pretty sure. And I'm like, that kind of explains a lot because it felt very dumbed down in many times. Maybe this is a 2.5, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to read you a little bit. I've tabbed it. And I don't tab, guys. This is Jack in his novel explaining the moon, right? The moon is back. It changes all the time. Sometimes it's pale gold, sometimes blue-white. Sometimes it's in a greyish halo edged faintly with red. But in fact, it's not any of those colours. It's some moon colour I can't describe. Or perhaps it's no colour at all. Perhaps the light isn't strong enough to allow my eyes to see in colour, so that what I'm seeing is a world in black and white. I wanted to rip my eyeballs out when I read that, but that was how it was kind of the whole time, you know? It was very childish and it didn't work for me. And also because it was all in journal format, there was so often times as he's meant to be slowly feeling the pressures of this isolation and fear, that it was like the ramblings of a crazed man should be coming through. He shouldn't feel so self-aware of the reader. He was so aware of the reader in his journals, even though he was writing it for himself and he didn't want his journals to be read. And so it felt like Michelle was too aware of us as readers as she was writing Jack as a character. I don't know if that makes sense. It felt like this big circular nonsense. Like it was like Jack didn't feel authentic. He felt like it was like her writing through him that she was so aware of us and wanted to scare us. But then it became so fake and unrealistic. If he was genuinely scrambling and writing and fearful, he wouldn't be this self. He wouldn't be writing about the fucking moon like that. I don't know. It didn't work for me. There was the first moment he saw something spooky on their camp. That worked really well. I thought that was the scariest part of the novel. The way this being was detailed and described was really cool. I loved it. The head tilt and one shoulder being up and like the way he thought it was just someone from the ship before they left and it was this normal conversation. That worked and I would have enjoyed it if she did a little bit more with that. But instead it became this weird thing of like him being like, oh, I've been looking out the window too many times, so I'll put some blankets up. But now I'm going to look out the window maybe 15 times this day. Like he was so frustrating. And it was like he wasn't enough to scare me, like because it felt so forced and unrealistic, his descent into madness. And the fear didn't feel palpable. It didn't feel like it was genuine fear on his part because he was such a self-aware character. Do you know what I mean? I hate when a character becomes written for the audience's eyes, if that makes sense. And because, I don't know how to explain this, I'm going on a rant, but I also just couldn't visualize him as a character. Even though it's written in first person because it's part of his journal entries, I still like to feel like I've got a sense of who this person is, and I didn't get that. Like, I couldn't see it through his eyes. So I felt like I was disconnected from this whole ordeal. And I think that was another reason I didn't really feel fear or spooked while I read this, because I just couldn't get into the mind and eyes of this character, which is really unusual considering it's all written from his point of view. You feel like you should be able to naturally slip into his mind, his mindset, you know? And I couldn't. It didn't work for me. But I read it super quickly. It was still a good read for a first book club. And as you can probably guess, we had some really interesting discussions and we all actually had very similar feelings about it. Our average rating for all of us, I think it was 6 or 7 of us that read it in the family, and our average rating, once calculated up, was 3.1 stars. So we all kind of had a similar time. The only thing we all thought about it was that obviously it was very easy to read. Yeah, it just didn't quite land. And then the ending, I'm not going to get into it, guys, but there were some feelings had about the ending of this book. because it just kind of flipped and didn't make sense. And I don't really talk about it. I don't want to spoil the book. I might do a spoiler review of some books soon, to be honest, because I do need to get them off my chest sometimes. Anyway, this book didn't live up to the expectations, and I apologise to my family if they didn't enjoy it for their first book club. But still fun. Still fun. And I still gave it 2.5, 3 stars. So I don't think it's all bad. I just told you about the bad shit, you know. Last for April, ended on a bang. Thank goodness, after reading Dark Matter, I picked up the new release of Simone St. James's, which is A Box Full of Darkness. Another one I ate up. I guzzled it, baby, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. She is a top contender for one of my favourite authors nowadays. I listened to Sundown Motel many moons ago, back in 2020, 2021, or whenever it just came out. Listened to the audiobook, did not enjoy it, and it took away a lot of star ratings from my review of that book because I didn't like the audiobook. Whereas what I've realised is she's someone I just have to read physically because I get so engrossed and I get so freaked out by her novels. This one, though, I wouldn't say is... still think it's better than Sundown Motel. Not as good as Murder Road, though. But it was a solid 4 stars. This had a little bit of everything. I enjoyed the sibling dynamic. It's following 3 siblings who go back to their childhood house that they haven't been to in nearly 20 years since their, parents died and left it, and none of them want to live there because when they were kids, their 6-year-old brother disappeared one day playing hide and seek, and his body was never found. No trace of him's ever been found. And then the landscapers, who one of the siblings has been paying to look after the place so they don't have to go back, calls and he's like, "Hey, Dad, we're quitting. None of us want to work there." And she's like, "Bro, why? Bro, you've been doing this for 18 years. Why now?" And he's like, "Well, my blokes called me and they don't want to go there. So I had reports of a boy showing up. And so I didn't believe him, but I went there myself and I saw this kid, this little boy, and he was going, 'Come home.'" And so he's like, "Oh, I quit." And she's like, "Yeah,
fair enough. Saying Anna. But she knew. She was like, "It's Ben."
Their little brother telling them to come home. And so they do. All 3 siblings, there's 2 sisters and a brother, and all 3 of them pack up their shit and they go back to this house. And what ensues is a tale of horror and spooks. And it's all pretty much set back in this family home and in the town of Fell. And I loved her little nuggets to her previous novels, like Sundown Motel and all of that are in here. And I just thought it added an extra layer. It was very Stephen King of her. She even dedicated this to Stephen King. So like 11/22/63, where he's like ends up in Derry. That guy? Because she said, "For Stephen King, who teaches so many of us not only how to be a writer, but how to be a good one." And I do feel like she paid homage to him by dropping in those little nuggets of her previous novels into this storyline, but you can still totally read this as a standalone. It's not a series, but it's cool if you have read them, Adds a little bit of extra haunting to it, of uneasiness in this town, knowing like the other shit that happened in those other novels. Like it just adds, I don't know how to explain it. It just adds an extra depth to it. And all that feeling, like it's super heavy. The feeling of this town is heavy, and this house, I love a haunted house, but they're not always done very well because it's such an oversaturated trope in horror novels that it can feel quite predictable. And this didn't. I enjoyed it. Like it didn't go anywhere crazy, as in it didn't have any crazy twists. It didn't have anything mental, but it worked perfectly. It felt like a very natural progression of the story, a natural build up to a great conclusion. I thought the haunting was done really well. I thought it had a touch of sadness with the story of their brother and the little boy that went missing, and the history of this house. There was a few loose ends, stuff about their parents and Ben. I don't know, can't talk about it without spoiling, but I would have enjoyed maybe a bit more of an explanation. But then again, it can be nice to have things left open to your interpretation. And I thought the house, because we spend so much time in this house, I thought it was done perfectly. Like I could visualize it with no fault. Like I could see it all, each room, everything. I had the feeling of it. Like I felt this weight on my chest while reading it. I don't know if I just empathized with these characters too much. Like there was something really relatable in the way this was written. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was just me. I just liked the dynamic of the siblings too. I mean, there was the natural bickering that happens even as you're adults. Like, you fall back into some of those states, I suppose, like natural stuff, but there was also just the love for each other and that you will protect each other no matter what. And they'd been through this traumatic event together, and it was like they were all experiencing the revelations at the same time. So they would never hide in shit from each other. They were working together. Like, I was like, this is so refreshing to have this where siblings don't fucking hate each other the whole time. Like, yeah, they bicker because that's normal. You bicker with anyone, and you go back into that state of sometimes being a kid, but you get out of it quickly once you spend enough time with your adult siblings. You know what I mean? And then I feel like it would be a real thing if you went through that traumatic event 20 years prior together and you're learning new things. Yeah, why the fuck would you keep it from them? And like, I loved that she did that and she let them be good siblings who worked together. You know? Yeah, it worked. As someone with 3 brothers, I thought it worked. And it's what I would hope would happen. Jesus Christ. Anyway, I gave this 4 stars. There was some genuine creepy moments. There was one moment that I thought was like the scariest bit. I was like, oh yeah, we've reached like a big moment in this book with this spirit. This is one of the ghosts or whatever. And literally, as I was reading this scariest line, my husband calls me on his way home from work. Spell was broken. That's all right. It's fine. It's not Simone's fault. It's Lucas's. But I really enjoyed this. Like I said, she's just someone I'm going to pick up any book from. And I need to go back and read a few of hers actually now. Especially now I know, like, the last couple I've read I've really enjoyed. I'm going to go buy a few. Because she's just got something. She just sprinkles that spookiness in, and that's not even eating it up. That is consuming. You know what I mean? So if you haven't read this, please do add it to your 2026 TBR, because this one has just been released this year. So please add it. If you like a ghost story, a haunted house story, siblings, and like a cold case, and the mystery of all these kids in this town that die in mysterious ways or go missing. And like, yeah, see, so much. There's so much in this. So I love a good like cold case novel. And this had that too. So multi-layered and very enjoyable. We have come to the end of the April reading wrap-up. So I read 6 books, which I know isn't very many, but for me that's good and I'm happy with. I read 6 books, nearly 2,000 pages. Moods, dark, tense, mysterious, sad. There was a bit of like sadness going on. Medium paced. Looks like that's all I had. Nothing was too fast paced, nothing was slow. I rarely read a slow paced book. And all fiction and a perfect mix of thriller, horror and mystery. You know, that's of course typical for me. My average rating for the month was 3.71 stars, which actually I think is pretty good. 3 stars, 1 3.5 star, 1 4 star, 1 4.25, and 1 4.5. My top book and my highest suggestion for you as a horror reader is One Yellow Eye or Box Full of Darkness if you're into ghosties. Now I'm going to do a quick mini book haul. I know I've been yapping for a while. I didn't think I could yap about 6 books that much. A new release that arrived is The Caretaker by Marcus Claire. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Like everybody, you read We Used to Live Here. This is his next novel. Don't know much about it. Horrific things will ensue, I have no doubt, but I don't know much else about it. I'm going in blind, guys. Here Lie All the Boys Who Broke My Heart by Emma Zimmerman. A little bit different for me, but I loved the cover, and the tagline is her exes are dead to her, literally. And I was like, maybe I just need something light and fluffy. So that's this book. Every time a boy breaks her heart, she's writing like letters to them, you know, and burying them, burning the letters, whatever. Until one day, one of the boys, he winds up dead. And at the scene is one of the, like her letter to him, but she didn't do it. And so it's like her journey then. But I feel like this is a little bit more YA, which is weird for me. But anyway, and I could be completely wrong, but I'm not going to read the whole back of these books. They just sound fun. Next one is Death Takes a Holiday by Sean McAuliffe. This sounds like comedy horror, and I loved this cover. This is the origin story of the first real vampire, not Dracula. So it says. So I feel like this will be fun. A little, like, look, so quick. I love a good Aussie one. He's quite funny. If I wasn't dead, I would sue Bram Stoker. Yeah, I feel like this will just be a bit of a laugh, you know? I bought on that same trip was The Bloody Brick Road by Maud Royer, a Wizard of Oz retelling. Say less and say no more. I don't even have to tell you anything about this. But you know, sometimes you just need to have these kind of campy slashers on the shelf, you know? It's just a bit of a literary fiction. I found this the other day. This is called I See You've Called In Dead by John Kenny. I just needed a little bit of a palate cleanser. He's an obituary writer and his wife's left him. He is a bit miserable, hasn't got much going for him. He's dating, not very well. And one day he jokingly, I think he's drunk, he prints his own obituary that he wrote. And he's like, fuck it, I'm going to get fired now. And then he goes on this journey of actually attending the wakes and the funerals of the people he writes obituaries for because he wants to learn how to live his life again. But what hooked me on this was something that said, perfect for fans of dark, heartfelt comedy. And I love a dark comedy, baby, but with, I don't know, with messaging and something heartfelt. So I feel like this will be really, really cool. And something a bit different for me, guys. An oldie that I have not read that I remember everyone reading is Everyone Here Is Lying by Cherie Lapina. This sounds like it might be like more domestic drama, you know? Like this one street where I think a guy, he comes home angry one day and his daughter's pissing him off, and then next minute his daughter's gone missing and like everyone's kind of suspicious, I think. Yeah, and he's not the only one on the street who's hiding a lie. A witness comes forward with information that may or not be true. Avery's neighbours become increasingly unhinged. Who took Avery Wooler? So, missing kid, streets got secrets, he's not the only one. Sounds fun, but sounds messy, you know, and I felt like a messy domestic drama. New release is Molka by Monica Kim. Stunning cover. Cool bookstore. And I love the pink horror, but also creepy. But yeah, this Molka, the Korean term for spy cameras secretly and illegally installed, often to caption voyeuristic images and videos. Gross. But this is about a woman who, she meets a guy, she thinks he's the man of her dreams, and then one day, images of her naked body are all over the internet. She didn't post them. She doesn't know where the cameras are. She goes on a bit of a revenge spree. I hope, anyway. Who am I? I bought The House of Frank by Kay Sinclair because of the cover. Look at this. It's so pretty. This is just a little fantasy. But it's a fantasy about grief. A girl who lost a witch who lost her sister. And she's, never lived without her. She stumbles upon this house. Frank owns it. And I think it's just her coming to terms with the fact that she can be loved again for everything she is, including her grief. And she meets a cast of wholesome characters, and I think it's heartbreaking and beautiful and cozy. And I think that'll be another good palate cleanser for me. Another new release that ended up on my doorstep is Dark Is When the Devil Comes. I don't remember why I wanted this, but I did. By Daisy Pierce. He's a kidnapper, but she's the real monster. Say less, girlfriend. That's all I wanted to know, and here it is. So that's another 2026 release, I'm pretty sure. And one of the last ones I purchased recently is The Grapevine by Kate Kemp. This is an Australian crime fiction set in Canberra in the 70s. And I think it's another like neighborhood domestic drama. It opens with her like cleaning her bathroom floor, and not just because she loves it, but because her husband just killed the neighbor. A 12-year-old Tammy launches her own investigation, determined to find out what happened, but she's not the only one whose well-meaning efforts uncover more mysteries than they solve. Murder isn't the only secret this community is hiding. So I think that's sweet, like having like a 12-year-old girl in this neighborhood wanting to like figure out what happened to her missing neighbor and uncovering all sorts of dark shit along the way, I'm sure. And also being set in like 70s Canberra, Australia. I don't know, that has such like a visceral feeling to me. I wasn't alive then, obviously, but it makes me feel kind of claustrophobic and hot. I always like to try and find a bit of like Aussie crime fiction when I'm out about, especially at independent bookstores. So that was one that I picked up. So we have finally come to the end of my Yap Fest today. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you made it all the way through, then I appreciate you very much. I would love it if you hit like, subscribe, leave a comment if you feel like you would like to, and I would love to know what was the best book you read in April and what is on your May TBR. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!